When you dare to share, you break the silence. When you dare to share, you speak your truth. When you dare to share, you use the full strength of your voice. When you dare to share, it brings opportunity to own your story. So tell it, be heard, and at the same time, your sharing is someone else's learning, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, and hope. There's always an element to each of our stories that remains a secret. For some, we feel it's a dirty little secret. Dare to share your untold story exposes these secrets in a welcoming and positive way. When we think mental health, more often than not, in our minds, these words are directly linked to illness, mental illness, and planted with a negative connotation. While physical health, more often than not, is processed with much more neutrality. Through sharing, storytelling, and raw conversation, together we can inspire across communities. The notion of embracing an alternative, which I have reframed as mental beauty. The next way to see mental health. Take in the beauty, lessons, learnings, and owning that it is as much part of each of our lives as every other aspect of health and wellness. I encourage each of you out there to dare yourself to share what is yours to tell. When we dare, it is the courage to do something really important. Let this be a vow to each and every single one of us that we take risk, we brave, confront, and face what is, while inspiring and empowering all communities. So let's break that silence and tap into mental beauty. This is Salima Jadavji, your podcast host, a practicing clinical social worker, and your mental wellness connoisseur. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast, episode number 1. That's right, this is our first podcast ever, and I'm delighted to be here and bring this to an audience that I hope will grow with me over time. My name is Salima Jadavji, and I'm a practicing mental health clinician specializing in transformational processes with my own clinical practice called Dare to Heal, Let's Talk. My clinical practice is what has led me onto the path for daring that much more, including creating this podcast, Dare to Share Your Untold Story. So because it's all tied and related, I wanted to take a moment to highlight the formation of Dare to Heal. Dare to Heal was born under the pretense of the willingness to take charge and to take risks, to give yourself permission to have vulnerabilities and show up with vulnerability. No matter what any of our experiences, unless we are willing to take the risk, we won't be able to get to where we desire to go, and it isn't until we are faced with a dare that we ever consider doing the thing that we never thought we would or even could do. Dare to Heal is meant as an opportunity for each person to give themselves a chance to dare and go within, so that untapped victory can be yours, and only yours. The gift of change and transformation is invaluable, and it all starts when you dare. And with guidance and support, you can actually heal. It will take tons of effort, dedication, determination, and perseverance. And the outcome is the endless possibility for healing potential and that you can heal. Healing does happen. Dare to Share Your Untold Story is something I decided to bring forward as a way to break the barriers of mental stigma that keep us from showing up with authenticity, vulnerability, acceptance, and bravery. No matter what the hurdle, struggle, or journey, it often takes a particular toll on mental health, and our story, the full story, often remains untold or tucked away. We all have stories, but the story that needs telling is the one that sometimes needs a dare. The act of a dare puts the onus back on us, and it's much easier to act on it once the dare has been activated or initiated in some way. I also believe that part of welcoming people's stories is that they are in one of 3 places. The first is knowing that they have a story to share, and perhaps they don't even know how to navigate or even where to start. The second, this is where an individual is, while going through their story and journey right now, is in the very present moment. And the third, a place where one has gotten through their story or journey and can look back on their obstacles and hurdles and can speak to it eloquently, looking back. So throughout the episodes, we will hear from guests and the various points in their journeys. The first several shows, the guests that you will hear from have all been invited onto the show as they each have a compelling story to share and each are able to speak to their unique experience with the impact on their own mental health. The intention of this podcast and the invitation to start with the guests that you will hear from is a deliberate invitation to inspire others to come forward and both be brave and dare to share what has yet to be told. And because creating safety and trust is so very important to me, this first episode begins with the telling of my story, the beginnings of mine, where it has led me, inspired me, and to share this with listeners in hopes to encourage them to come forward and unmask. Take the armors and shields off and let it happen with permission to be, feel, and let flow. To all my fellow listeners, before we get started, I'm just dropping in a note to give you a heads up that this podcast might be emotionally triggering for you. We do invite guests onto the show who share openly about extremely difficult life moments with exposure and impact of what the struggles have been like. The intensity of each episode could have a variable impact on your emotional and mental well-being based on your own personal story. If at any point the topic becomes uncomfortable or upsetting to you in any way, please do not pressure yourself to listen. Instead, be kind to yourself, do some self-care, and perhaps give another episode a try. So today, I have brought on someone from the Dare to Heal team to interview me as we uncover my story. I introduce to you Charmin Sichter, Special Projects Lead and Coordinator. Not only does she support the Dare to Heal mission, she believes in it and is always readily available to lend a hand where needed, even on a whim's notice. Not only can she handle chaos, logistics, and getting all things organized, Charmin comes equipped with grace and soothing and a poised demeanor, along with a background in psychology, pursuing a career path in mental health, along with her recent enrollment in a master's level counseling program. I cannot wait for her to finish so she can join me at Dare to Heal and transition over to the clinical side.
Thank you, Salima, for such a warm welcome. I'm so excited to see how this conversation will unfold today. Our minds are so powerful in the way that it can allow us to make transformative changes even in the midst of complete chaos, And in Dare to Share, we really get to see many stories where exactly this happens. So, Salima, first starting with you, are you ready to share your story?
Yes, ma'am. I am ready.
So, before you tell us what your untold story is all about, if you were to read your story tomorrow in the newspaper, what would the headline be?
So, the headline, okay. The inside scoop of the miracle baby.
The Miracle Baby. Tell me more.
Okay, so this is a story about the day I was born and how the story was told to me as a little girl, and then how I integrated that story as a part of my life's journey. So, not long after I was born, I turned all blue. The valve in my heart stopped from opening after it last closed, and I was separated from my mother and rushed to a children's hospital to deal with this birthing emergency. What I remember being told is that I was being prepped for an emergency open heart surgery that had me at a 50-50 chance of survival. And while I was on several monitors and the medical team was prepping for surgery, apparently the machine started sounding and beeping, and there started to show some signs of heart activity. And with some additional medical efforts, I was out of acute danger, the surgery was not needed, and my parents were told by the doctor that I was a miracle baby, and clearly I was here to do something special. Over time, I took that message in and processed it as I'm a miracle baby, and that means I'm here not just to do something special, but I have miracles to perform, not really knowing what that message meant to me as it directed inward through all the layers of my inner core. But it's like that messaging is what I took in. I'm a miracle baby, and I'm here to perform a miracle.
Wow, a miracle baby. That is such a rare experience. Can you share with the listeners more about how this has impacted your life?
Yeah, so here's the thing. What I shared is mainly from the words I heard. Whether accurate, right, or wrong, it's actually the experience and interpretation of it that matters the most. This is how I integrated all of it internally and how my journey began. So, getting back to your question regarding the impact. Now, given that I had gone through this at birth, my parents, siblings, and much of my extended family, they paid extra attention to my health. They did what they needed to do and then some to protect me. The protection I received, even though it was from a place of love, it sometimes felt really overbearing. It's as though my ill health and birthing scare had put everyone in some state of worry, which could have actually been more so anxiety in disguise. So, what that meant for me is that I could sense it as a child. Obviously, I didn't know what I was picking up on, but the vibe was that I had to somehow protect them from worrying about me. Actually, the story goes back further. I should share that my mother always wanted to have a daughter. You see, my mother lost her own mom when she was only about 7 years old. And at that time, shortly after, she was also separated from her sisters. And over time, she yearned for that special bond and connection that is experienced in a mother daughter relationship. Now, of course, she gave birth to two boys, my older brothers, and I'm pretty sure one of them was a troublemaker. But that aside, she did tell my father, at least I think what she shared with me when I was younger. She said that she really wanted a girl this time and she wanted to keep trying until she got one. So my father started to pray. He prayed real hard that they would deliver a girl. And so here I am. I came along. And I came along, and my traumatic birth must have terrified them. And I don't really know how that must have felt for my mom. You know, it wasn't just the birthing scene that led them to this theme of, becoming overprotective. It was also this worry to lose a daughter that she got, the wish that she had longed for, a miracle that I survived that day, mixed in with the fear that tagged along, that it almost all got snatched away. Throughout my life, even after that point, unrelated to this birthing complication, I seemed to undergo one health query or struggle after another. So there definitely was reason to have chronic worry. And what I know now about worry is that when it's overbearing and at the forefront of your mind, you get so caught up and consumed by it, you don't know how that shows up to the people around you. And over time, I think I must have misunderstood this as I was, damaged goods, or that's what I thought. And I think it led to me feeling like I wasn't capable of doing things on my own. That if I attempted to take a risk, learn something new, I would fail, or that I couldn't succeed unless someone helped me. I was really shy and soft spoken, and I didn't really share my internal experiences with anyone or know even how to express them. So, this is kind of where I learned to have all things planned.
All things planned.
Yeah, all things planned. Meaning, because they worried about me so much, I didn't want to give them any more reason, to be worried. I couldn't always share with them what was going on with me, physically or emotionally. And as a child, I felt I had to be strong, and sometimes I didn't know how to regulate all the different emotions that would come up. So I would have to have a plan and prepare for when I had to tell them something that happened, or somewhere I had to go or wanted to go, or outings that I wanted to have with friends or anything like that. They worried so much, sometimes I even doubted what my capacity was for what I could do. At all ages, I spent so much time planning and preparing and taking into account all things in my head, trying to be mindful of how they needed to hear things. So, this is the part where the theme of protection turned into anxiety for me. Being sheltered so much somehow translated to not knowing how many layers of anxiety were built, theirs and mine. I think unknowingly I took on some of their fears that they had for me and their anxieties as well. And I guess growing up, I didn't suffer from performance or social anxiety or anything like that. It was more of those internal states, that kept my mind busy, wondering if I could make it, all these endless thoughts on repeat taking over my mind, and the pressure to make it because I'm a miracle baby. And the dialogue went on for a while. It was like an ongoing pattern, like a broken record. Also, I had a brilliant inner critic, I've got to say, who would remind me relentlessly that I haven't performed any miracles yet, and therefore not meeting the standard. And with the whispering sound of hearing that I'm not good enough, I can't make it, I won't make it, and the fear of not being successful, I shamed myself so much.
I can imagine how difficult this must have been for you growing up and even for your family. You were protecting them in your way, and they were protecting you in the way that they knew how.
Hmm.
So, was there anything else from this story that you just shared so far that you feel affected you?
Oh, yeah. So that anxiety that I talked about, like that anxiety, it morphed into perfectionism. This ran deeper in all facets of my life. No matter what I did, I never felt good enough. I needed to be better. I had this idea that I wouldn't be accepted unless I achieved or attained a certain level of something. I constantly had thoughts of what I needed to do in order to shine and be great. But this entire attitude only let me see my sense of worth from this place of external validation. And that's a major pitfall of perfectionism. And external validation is what you look outwardly for. So you look for the praise, you look for someone to recognize you, and you're looking for, someone to give you that high five. But I didn't have any of that for myself. And so either I had this theme looming over me of feeling incapable and not knowing, being so protected, sheltered, and cared for, that it really led me to live this way for so long. And then the other side is that expectation of being the exception, being that miracle baby, being the miracle. So I would have to achieve and perform, and I should just be able to get it because I was supposed to. So, this idea of not being good enough, yet I'm supposed to be so great and talented, I can only see how this expectation was placed on me by my own self. It's like I had some ingrained idea, which growing up, I must have thought this was all expected of me. And when you think about something so much, you can actually believe it so strongly without even realizing or checking the facts that it's actually inaccurate. I may have experienced things in a certain way, but that doesn't mean that was really what was going on with those around me.
So, in the start, you mentioned that Dare to Share will cover stories of people in three different places of their journey, right? Now, what part of the journey would you say that you are in? Are you looking back at it, or do you feel like you're still in the middle of your journey?
Yeah. So, Charmin, I'm a recovering perfectionist. So, as much as I want to say that I'm looking back more accurately, I'm still in the midst. I'm in a place where I know and see and feel with certainty that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I have hope, and I definitely have a path to look back on. I still get caught up in the miracle and my own perfectionistic tendencies from time to time. And even though that still happens, my inner radar is fully tuned. So it picks up on every slight offbeat. So I am able to bring myself into check and into gear quite quickly and much more smoothly than I was before. However, I don't really feel I've quite reached there just yet. Like, I think I'm still in the middle, but I'm approaching. I'm approaching a place where I can look back.
Perfectionism, can often be looked at as like a great trait. And like we love perfection, we always want to be perfect, but it has its thorns, right?
Yeah, we all gravitate towards it. Like, it lights us up. We're like, oh yeah, we can do it better. We get excited. We thrive on it. But
Exactly.
you're right, it is definitely like a thorn.
Yeah. So, Salima, can you share how being a perfectionist has impacted your mental well being?
Definitely. Okay, so it was never easy. I mean, it felt as though I was often misunderstood when I learned to express emotions. It came out in anger or a tantrum, being passive, giving the silent treatment, having this rage yelling that I did. But all of that just masked anxiety and fear and the unknown, that not knowing, and genuinely terrified of the unknown and feeling that I had no one who I could turn to that would get it. So what I did was, like, I turned inward right into shame. So I basically was conditioned to hang out with shame, and the anxiety mixed in just rubbed it in my face. It was a big burden weighing me down. And the constant takeover by my inner critic influenced me to feel that I was incapable of so much. The compromised self worth, I felt like a burden to my family. And I was really worried about the future and what it held for me. It felt like I was trying to navigate life on my own, feeling like I couldn't ask the real questions that were bubbling inside of me. Sometimes it made me feel like life actually wasn't worth living, Charmin. And I hated getting up in the mornings. I constantly had trouble sleeping. There was a time where I engaged in a great deal of self-harm, cutting to release the emotional pain. There was at least one time that I thought about ending it all. Yeah. And I suffered an eating disorder at one point and even ran away from home another. I really had trouble with just identifying emotions, triggers, let alone regulating them.
Thank you for sharing that with us today, Salima. I know you're not alone in this, and many of the listeners can relate to you in some way. And I can only hope that this story would bring some sort of light or glimmer of hope to them.
Thank you.
So, after going through this entire experience, what have you learned about your mental health now that you couldn't see in the start of your journey?
Well, just before I answer that question, what I would like to add about what you just said is that, I don't think that I would necessarily have just nonchalantly been able to share that the whole last bit, just about the running away, the eating disorder, the cutting, that, ending it all, the thoughts that came up. But I really feel like so many people that I have spoken to in the context of therapy have had such experiences that are unique to themselves but have so much commonalities.
Right.
And it's so hard for us to speak up about it. And again, this is part of daring to share your untold story. I'm really taking risks here to tell the story or parts of it. But I think this is my full story here because I really want people to see that even as a therapist, even someone in the field, I'm not like in some like VIP category that I don't experience the same things. We all experience things. And so I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about that, like that I had the chance to name that.
And it definitely takes a lot of courage, This is not an easy thing in any way.
No, but I feel so equipped and ready to share, and I hope that inspires people to also share. Okay, so about that question you asked me, so this experience and my journey so far, what I've learned about my own mental health. So I have learned that there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel, right? So as I mentioned before, even when things are rough, they do get better. I have a pretty heightened sense of self-awareness now. I have learned to pay attention for cues when I notice changes in my mood, facing high pressure situations, using coping strategies in the moment to de escalate when I'm having an intense moment, keeping space to care for myself first so that I can really then be there for those that I love and care about. I have also learned to be a silent observer. I have learned to pay attention to details. I have learned to step into multi directions when problem solving and dealing with confrontation. I have also learned gratitude in what shows up. And I feel like one of my superpowers is empathy. And I don't think I'd have cultivated the empathy that I have today if I hadn't gone through some of what I've shared today. So I really find a way to relate to others when I haven't experienced what they have been through. When I experience something, I experience it fully with an array of emotions. And I also fully role reverse in the other person's shoes when I see or hear someone's story. I have this finite ability to anticipate people's needs even when they are unspoken words. And I feel that all my experiences have taught me to be thoughtful and to treat people, especially those who are really close to me, with an open heart. I willingly go out of my way, to be there for others. And I learned to show up unconditionally for others. I really don't expect anything in return. It's just my genuine way of feeling love and care and connection with people. I think that's why the empathy is so solid inside me. And I feel like these have all become my gifts and my talents, or at least contributed to some of my gifts and my talents. I can see that the struggles and the hurdles I have overcome now help me to connect with all kinds of people, children, teenagers, adults, older adults, and people from all walks of life. So it seems that I have learned a number of things, and I have truly learned to find the calm in the storm.
So you're really like a butterfly, aren't you?
Yes, the butterfly. I totally am a butterfly. Yeah, the butterfly analogy. I think, yeah, it's definitely the process and
Mm-hmm.
the journey and, all the stuff in between, not
Right.
just the outcome. That's for sure.
So, what are you grateful for in your life after experiencing this journey?
Yeah, I guess I would just reiterate a little bit about the things that I just mentioned, so my ability to connect with others, the heightened capacity for self-awareness that I possess, and my ability to take risks and self-discover, and my curiosity for life. For everything I have been through, when I am faced with challenges, they don't even feel that way at times. Not anymore. I actually get excited when tough times show up because I get to keep building those mental and emotional muscles. I mean, sometimes I might have like a 3 minute rant about how awful it is, but I'm able to switch gears pretty quick. And I'm able to manage crises very well and deal with unexpected when it shows up. And I certainly have learned not to take life for granted and take things with a grain of salt. And this I really am grateful for. And of course, finally unlearning and recognizing that being a miracle in this world is not a thing, it's not possible. And I'm a recovering perfectionist, and that's okay.
And what is your key message today that you want all of the listeners to know?
Oh man, I have so many key messages, but okay. It's important to celebrate wins. I want people to understand that celebrating wins, especially the small ones, they're even more important than the big ones because these are the foundation for all the others that come after. And the other message is that healing takes time. There are far more layers than that meets the eye. So take your time and go slow. So it's important to care for yourself at each step of the way and to take rest stops or pauses. No matter how fast the world has you spinning around or what demands have been placed on you, that go hustle of life never really stops. So we need to be our own first responders and be cognizant to take those moments for ourselves. You don't need to get sucked into like norms and rules or values that don't fit you. I have taken an important step to help break down the barriers of mental stigma and share my story right now. And I really took the risk to speak openly and raw without caution. And so I hope that this will inspire listeners to do the same. I also want to let people know that it helps to get comfortably uncomfortable. So find your inner radar and teach it signals of what is healthy that keeps you going and when you need to slow down or even pause from a conscious place. Another message is to embrace the idea of being perfectly imperfect. No one is perfect. Things can be a recipe of just right, but it can never be perfect. And, a reminder that there is beauty in imperfection, because to me, it means that there's no one cookie cutter way to be. And I learned to own what's mine and give back and not take in what is not mine to take. And what I mean by this is that it's one thing to cope with things, the things that make you nervous and worried and anxious. But when others around you are experiencing that same nervousness or worry or anxiety, it's important to use that built in radar of yours to say, nope, that's not mine, so I'm not taking it. Or, nope, that's not mine, so I'm giving it back. Yeah, so I think those are my key messages for the listeners.
I think I'm going to start writing that down for myself.
I'm pretty sure you're already doing some of those things, Charmaine.
Never hurts to take more.
Okay, take your notes.
Who do you want to give a shout out to now that has been impactful to your journey and you would like to acknowledge them right now?
So this is where I had plans to like have my guests give a shout out to a cause or an organization or some sort of inspiration. But there really are too many people to give a shout out to, as I have so many heart connections and impactful people that I have connected with over the years. So I think what I'm going to do is take a moment to just acknowledge a few. I guess how I want to start is actually to acknowledge the deceased members of my family. I can feel their energy shining down on me, guiding me at times when I'm facing a fork in the road. And my one and only living grandparent, my grandmother, that I have had the fortunate experience to bond with, her calm demeanor is a constant like in the face of strife. Her attitude and sincerity has taught me so much. She has such a big, clean, open heart. And I think I'd like to give a particular shout out to my parents. They're angels. I want to thank them. Thank you for not giving up on me when my entry into this world gave you a fright. They may not have always understood me, but they certainly have never given up on me. They may not understand the work I do, but they do believe that I'm making a difference in the people's lives that I work with, and they are proud of who I've become. Now, there is someone by the name of Yasmin, a golden woman who is super close to my family, and she holds a special place in my heart, and I want to express my gratitude for all the times that she has been there, even when my parents couldn't. And of course, my two brothers, they're like my superheroes in the world. We may have grown apart as we take on life. My eldest bro, he's one I have always looked up to and admired, and I always felt like if I could aspire to be a little bit of him, I'd be a good human being. And my middle brother, he was like my companion as we were growing up together. So I really have him to thank for that. And both of my brothers have they have kind and gentle hearts. Always showed me and exposed me to parts of life that only a brother can do. And I know I can't just keep listing all these people like that I want to give shout outs to, but I would like to say that my clients, I want to give a shout out to all my clients, the ones I've seen in the past, the ones I'm seeing now, and maybe even the ones that I'll see in the future. I'm grateful for the journey that I've been on, that I've been invited to embark on with them. I have learned so much about life. They have taught me to look at things from different angles, and at times I was put to the test to find new ways. The more clients that I work with, the more self-discoveries that I've made of my own. So it's very precious for me.
Is there an inspirational quote that you live by that reflects your untold story?
Yeah, there is. It's by Maya Angelou, and it's a quote that is inspiration for me in my life quest, and one that has been inspirational in how I embody the work that I do and really reflects my untold story and honoring the process of it. And the quote is, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty."
Can you repeat that quote again for our listeners?
Yes, I can repeat it. "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." So, to me, what it means as we go through our changes is that it's helpful to own each change one at a time, honor the place that you're in each step of the way. And once you experience the butterfly, you can remind yourself of the changes that helped you get there. So I want to take the butterfly metaphor like a bit further. It's Tara Brach who uses this metaphor as well. And she talks about how it is this spiritual transformation of the butterfly from caterpillar into a cocoon, and the transformation into butterfly and flying into freedom. And so that's how she talks about it. And she explains this as humans, as people, we live in this familiar cocoon of egoic thoughts and behaviors. And though it serves its purpose, and the cocoon serves people in earlier stages of development, there then comes a time where we need to go beyond. And when the time comes for us to go beyond and we don't, the cocoon will create pressure and it will start to squeeze because the space that we're living in is too small for our growing spirit. So that pressure is a reminder to take a chance to break open and set yourself free. And as a result of not taking the chance, that could be damaging. And so she talks about this idea of arrested development. This is why I truly believe that we all need to tap into our untold stories and start telling and sharing, because it's for our own spirit, it's for our own growth, and for us to be able to soar and be more. And not even more, just be who we are authentically meant to be. And so this is actually the concept of taking exquisite risks. So if you were to take a breakdown of what does exquisite mean, it means a kind of beauty and excellence and sensitivity and responsiveness. And risk is about exposure to danger and loss. So when you put exquisite risk together, that means that we're willing to let go of old experiences that indeed gave us some measure of comfort or security or certainty, and we exchange it for what is unfamiliar and way more alive from that real wholehearted place. So let's tell our stories and get to a place where we are giving ourselves a chance to live our best lives. That's Exquisite Risks. So, I would like to end today's show with another quote from Maya Angelou, and it says it best. It doesn't even need any further explanation. So here's the quote. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. So, Charmin, I can't thank you enough for coming on our first episode and being part of this Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast and for helping me unravel my own story.
Thank you for inviting me, Salima.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's honestly been a real pleasure as we've talked about all of this in such a real, raw way. To all of our listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and you want to be part of breaking down barriers of mental stigma, I invite you to go wherever you are listening to the episode and hit subscribe. Leave us a comment or a review of the episode and maybe how you relate to it. To learn more about what we offer, visit www.daretoheal.co. And if you are feeling ready and brave to share, please submit your story by visiting www.daretoshare.co. Thanks for joining in.